All right, guys. I definitely appreciate you guys stopping in here. As you can see, I have Miss Flo with me, and what she's done some incredible things, but she's here today to kind of walk us through a little bit of her journey, but more talk about how you can dump that and build wealth in simple. That's her phrase. I love it. Before I kind of get into this discussion, I wanted to first thank all you guys. It's nearly about 1,300 of you guys in here. So appreciate you joining in, engaging, asking questions, getting your questions answered. That's half the battle. If you can at least find out what options you have, you can make a better decision. So definitely appreciate your engagement on that. Don't forget, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube watching this, make sure you like, subscribe, share with a friend who may be building their business, maybe getting out of debt, things of that nature. I have Flo. A lot of you may or may not have heard from her. I came across her from a different interview, and I was just honestly impressed with what she had been doing and just the mindset she had about how not only she tackles her money, but just the things she's accomplished. So I thought if you're a woman out there and if you're really trying to strive to do better in your with your finances or with your business, I thought her words of encouragement and experience could be helpful for you. So Flo, I don't want to butcher your story, so I definitely want you to kind of share with us a little bit about yourself, what kind of started you on this journey. Obviously, you got yourself out of debt, but kind of take us through your personal story.
Yeah. So, hi everybody. I'm Fo Alexander. Most people know me from my podcast, Girl Talk with Fo. But the story, I guess, that kind of made me popular was that I paid off $78,000 in student loan debt in less than 3 years. 47,000 of that was in 6 months, and that was with my husband after we had gotten married. So like most people, I got into student loan debt because I couldn't afford to pay. My parents didn't have a college fund saved up for me from when I was a child or anything. They did help pay for college. I did get scholarships, but whatever was left, I had to take student loans out for. And the bulk of that was for graduate school because I wasn't ready to be an adult. I like to be honest about it. I was not ready to pay bills, be an adult. So I was like, well, I'll go to grad school. And that one decision cost me over $54,000 for a year. So that's how I ended up in student loan debt. But over the years, I was just like, being in debt is not affording me the lifestyle that I want to have. I checked all the boxes. I went to, college. I went to grad school. I got a good job or whatever, but I still found myself living paycheck to paycheck. And I knew the only way to get out of that cycle was to get out of debt. And so it wasn't until years later, I want to say, when did I graduate? I can't even remember. Maybe 3 years after I graduated, I really started looking into getting out of debt. And the real reason, honestly, was that my now husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, but he told me he was out of debt. And so I was like, I never heard anyone say that they were out of debt. Like he didn't have it took me off guard. He's like, he paid off his student loans. He didn't have car payments. He had paid for his car cash. And so I knew our relationship was getting serious. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a burden to this relationship and, this marriage eventually. And so I started on my own personal journey of paying off debt. And then once we got married, we paid off the remainder of the debt. And so after I did that, I shared my story because I was blogging at the time, and then it kind of picked up. And I found that a lot of people just didn't have the information to do the same thing and to take control of their finances. Similar to me, I didn't have the information. I didn't grow up with it. No one taught me how to budget. And then I had failed attempts of trying to learn. But once I finally learned, I thought it was my duty to ultimately teach people how to do the same things in their own way. Everyone's story is not going to be like mine. I was blessed in a situation where we could pay it off very quickly. But I like to say the discipline is the same for everyone. The process is the same for everyone. And that's what I wanted to teach people. So that's how I landed to where I am now, talking about personal finances. Because I really want to see people become financially free.
No, awesome. I definitely sympathize with you. That grad school, you don't have a job or you don't have a plan. What do? You go to grad school. you keep the train going.
Exactly.
So now you're a speaker, you have a podcast, and since that time, how did that start to evolve for you as you start to build your own brand from getting yourself out of debt?
So once I got out of debt, like I said, I was blogging at the time. So it got picked up. Actually, the first person that people or brand or whatever that picked up my story was His and Her Money.
Okay.
I made a YouTube video, which is still one of my top performing YouTube videos to this day. It honestly did not think anything of it. I just made a video. Hey, I got out of debt for my, small followers at the time, our subscribers, and they picked it up. And so that's when I realized, like, this is a thing. Like, I got so much feedback. Like, people were like, did you really pay off debt? How did you do it or whatever? So that's really how that started. And it kind of took off from there. And so I was blogging about it. And then I realized that podcasting was a thing. And so I was like, it's probably easier for me to podcast, just record myself and put it out there. And so that's how it evolved. And I realized that there's also a business aspect to it. I think a lot of times people think that, oh, well, you're teaching people about money, you really can't charge for it. I used to do coaching. I don't do that anymore. But me teaching about personal finance and having that social media presence and that brand is a business for me. Right. And so it really, literally, my business was birthed from me just telling my story. Right. And now it's a business that continues to provide information for other people to better manage their finances by providing not only information, but also resources for them as well.
So I find it kind of interesting because I know just from people I spoke with, clients I've dealt with, and just different networking opportunities, blogging is not an easy skill or trade. YouTube, those podcasts, things of that nature is really not easy. You have to have a lot of consistency, but blogging in particular, there's a lot that goes in when you're doing a blog. So to have that opportunity, how did you start to manage and keep consistent, even though before and even after, or maybe you don't blog as much as now, but just understanding the skill and the effort it takes to do that?
Yeah, so my blogging journey is almost a decade old at this point. So I've learned a lot over the years, and what you said is true. It's all about consistency, not necessarily about having the best skill. It's all about being consistent. So now I'm at the point where I can like hire people to help me stay consistent. I have an assistant that helps me, she posts everything on social media for me and handles that. But before I got to this point, it was literally just being disciplined. And because it was something I enjoy, it wasn't necessarily a chore. There were seasons where it did become, because I realized, this is an income generating source for me. Right. It did become more of like, okay, this is a task that I have to do. So, and when it got to that point, I kind of took a break and I took a step back. And even now with blogging, the whole landscape of being online has really changed. Like I still blog and I still make revenue from that, like the actual typing, writing stuff, traditional blogging. But now it's a lot more about being on social media, video, and that type of stuff. So with that, my thing is batch record, batch do everything, and get an assistant to help me. But that's yeah, especially with my life.
So what would you say, because I know you gear a lot of your direction, your message to women striving to build their business, striving to be great. And you kind of already alluded to it before, understanding that your power and your message of your own story and you delivering that became the opportunity for you to basically create your own space. a lot of people do it. You still have to do things that you probably don't like to do, managing and things of that nature. But the core business that you're doing, how do you try to step into that? How do you start to really see that opportunity as a way to, number one, take yourself to financial freedom, but then at the same time, maybe the story isn't as clear as yours, but now I got a job, but this is kind of tugging at me, but I just don't necessarily have the time because I got the job. I started my business, I'm doing it, and I definitely encourage women to do those things. But you got a kid, you got a husband, you know what I mean? All those things take time. You're only 24 hours out the day. So how do you encourage in your message to go forward from that?
Yeah, I definitely think everyone has a story that's worth sharing. And I think a lot of times people feel intimidated because they don't think their story is as big or, as impactful. And there are plenty of people who paid off way more debt than I have in less time. But the thing was, I wasn't afraid to share my story because I knew I had a unique perspective. Like, no one grew up like me. No one went to the colleges I went to. No one had the same experiences. There are people who could. And the other thing about it was, I felt like there were people who could connect with me just because I am an African-American female. I'm a millennial. I'm from the South. Like the phrases and slang that I use, certain people can resonate with. So you have to understand that there are certain people who are waiting to hear your story. Yes, there's someone else who has a similar story, but there are a group of people who are waiting to hear your story because they resonate and they connect with you. And I can say that the people that have been following me for a long time because they connected with that story in some way, or, whether it was, they connected with me as being a single woman at the time, or, whatever the case may be, people will connect with your story. So I think the first thing is you have to be okay with being, with sharing your story. And I think the other thing that you were touching on is, how to find balance with it all. Is really what it sounded like. Because I still work full time. Literally, I just shut my computer down before we get on this call. So they let working from home, so it's a lot.
They got emails coming through, right?
Listen, I had to turn the sound off and everything, but there is, as a woman in particular, there is a balance that comes with trying to build a business, and maintain your home. And, I just had a daughter. And so that was another thing that was kind of thrown into it. It was easier when it was just me and my husband. And it's kind of like, okay, this is my side thing and I'm going to carve out time for it. And he understood that. But now, I have a child who depends on me. So balance is super important. For me is you do your work, do your 9 to 5, but know that the statistic I think we like to bring up in the personal finance space is like 78% of families live paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. So for most people, you have to have a side hustle. So it's no longer a choice. It's more of something that you have to do if you want to attain financial freedom. And at the end of the day, a 9 to 5 is not going to build wealth for you. It's a vehicle that will help. But if you want to build true generational wealth, you have to find other means of creating income. So you do the 9 to 5, but you have to carve out time. Like, you have to make time for building something that you are passionate about. And the thing about it is you have to do it in your own way. For me, it was blogging because that's something that came natural to me. It eventually evolved into, podcasting. And like I said, the reason I did podcasting is because I didn't have to get ready for a video. I didn't have to do, I could get in front of this mic and record, and that just made sense. Yeah. So you have to find a business that makes sense for your life and tell your story and build it around something that just makes sense for you. Mm-hmm. For me, it doesn't make sense to go out and, have a business after work, but it does make sense for me to leverage the internet and, selling digital products and that type of stuff, so that I can have additional streams of income. So it's all about balance and just doing what makes sense for your life and not trying to do what other people are necessarily doing. So I hope that answers your question in some way.
No, it definitely provides clarity. And like you said, the way you approach your life, I mean, that's how you approach your money. I can't make decisions. I can't make the same decisions that my friend with money, and my friends don't have the same. We can make the same salary, but I tell people, I'm like, your situation, your decisions aren't the same. You might have kids. I don't have kids. You know what I mean? Your parents might stay down the street. My mom stays 4 or 5 states over. So these decisions that you have to make aren't the same. I make a decision, these are our priorities ain't the same. So when you think about this journey, because as you said, you're on this wealth journey, we're on this wealth journey. I think a lot of people break it down to, how am I going to do it? What am I going to do? And yet, even if they get out of debt, I find a lot of people are struggle because they don't know what to do next. They're confused because getting out of debt is easy. Hey, you pay off debt A, you go after debt B. Once you get done and you got all this money, now you're like, well, where do I put my money to do this? And how do I stay consistent without the guardrail every month of a bill sitting next to me? So when you think about building wealth aspect and how you approach it, what would you say are things to help start to translate and transition a person's mind? Because essentially, I know one of the things I thought was, I think building wealth is like, in a sense, dreaming again. Because as a child, you think you can do everything, and then 18 hits you, and you're like, "Hey, my check don't go as far as I thought." Was rent and car and all this stuff come through. So when you get older, you might get out of debt and you find a little bit more fiscal responsibility. Now you're thinking about, okay, now I got to re-dream again. It's possible first, and then how do you start to really wrap your head around, even with the challenges of what's in front of?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to getting out of debt and not falling back into it, because human nature to repeat stuff, but you always have to have a vision of what's next. So one thing my husband and I do is we think about, okay, well, once literally we're talking about this now because we're working on paying off our house. It's like, okay, once we pay off this house, what's going to be the next goal? So always having a goal in mind. So you always constantly have something that you're working toward. So for us, it's like, okay, well, what do we want to start investing, or how do we want to start giving, and literally writing that down, writing that vision and writing that goal down. And so as soon as that is paid off, it's like, okay, we shift. And that money is now automatically going to wherever it needs to go. So I think when people are thinking about after they get out of debt, how do they start building wealth? Have that vision. What already know before you get out of debt, what the next thing is, and have that plan in place so that you can keep moving and always have a goal. And once you hit that goal, what's the next thing? Like you constantly have to have something that you're striving for, written down, and have a plan, whether that's automating it or whatever the case may be, so that you don't fall back into the bad habits that you had before that may have gotten you into debt.
Phenomenal. And just in case you guys missed that quick snippet, she's working on paying off her house. That's next level. That's next level. She got a kid, she got a husband, she got people in her ear. Like you said, right after the next plan. The same thing I think could be said about when you're building a business. Like once you always have to know 2-3 steps. All right, what's the business gonna be? Because I think the first hump is when you start with this idea. You have your idea. I had my idea of how I was gonna execute Money Talks, but what I ended up doing ain't nowhere on my notes. It was, this is what came up, and I'm like, oh, let me do this. This is what took. This is how people said they wanted to receive it. So I think people have said in their mind, oh, I'm gonna give them this gift this way. And in business, you have to pivot. I think the change part is our concept. How do you kind of navigate? Because you definitely, with the entrepreneur spirit, you're ready to pivot, you're ready to move. But for somebody who struggles with change, what would you encourage them to do, to even with money and even on their business?
Yeah, you definitely in business especially have to know how to pivot, especially like this year. Oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure so many people have had to pivot and change their plans. So you have to still have the same goal. Be committed to the goal, but not necessarily the process to get there. Because my process is not what I imagined it to be a couple of years ago. My thought was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be speaking and selling books, and it's just like, actually no, I don't want to do that. And Corona, I really don't want to do that. So you have to be committed to the goal, but not necessarily the process of getting there. Wow. And it's the same with finances. Like I just said, like we were working to pay off our house. We had a certain plan, and like literally we were like, I think we're going to pivot because there's a better approach to this. And that just comes with learning and time or whatever. But you just got to be okay with having the goal, but not being necessarily married to that process that you have. Like it's good to have a plan, but just know that, especially when it comes to business, those plans will change. And it could definitely be for the better. Like I've made so many pivots in my business that have helped generate a lot more revenue if I hadn't have made those changes.
So what would you say are the principles you live and breathe by as you start to instruct people, hey, this will help you get on your journey to wealth building? I'm still amazed by a podcast we did with a couple weeks ago. And one of the things that they said was, yeah, we got out of debt. He's like, we didn't get out of this to not have money. Like we got out of debt. And it was so simple. It messed me up. I think about it daily. But one of the things that you have found that worked for you, and even that you kind of tell people, hey, look at these. These are principles I live by to try to build wealth. What are things you say? I know you kind of alluded to the side hustle and things of that nature before, but what are things that you would say?
So I think I'm probably a non-traditional by saying this, but when it comes to building wealth for us, a huge part of it is giving. We completely believe in giving, and with our faith, we believe in tithing. So that is a huge part of wealth building for us. Is giving, knowing that when we give, we'll get back. So that's definitely a huge part of our wealth building. Having a side hustle, multiple streams. I'm not just going to say a side hustle. Multiple streams of income is important. So whether that's a side job, side hustle, investments, you have to have multiple streams of income. I think I talked about this on my last podcast, or maybe two podcasts ago, where Jeff Bezos made like $300 billion in a day or something crazy, or 13. I don't know what it was, something ridiculous, right? But it's because of his being invested in the company or whatever. So that's how the wealthy get wealthier, right? Is investing. So that's a huge part of our strategy, is investing in taking advantage of the stock market to gain wealth, or it could be real estate investing, doesn't matter. But my huge thing is give, and then also have multiple streams of income so that you can quickly build wealth, or use it for whatever. Like you can use that money to pay off debt, to save, whatever it is, but you're definitely going to need more than one stream of income. One story I like to share with people, people see my story now, but after we paid off debt, like I got laid off right after we had bought a house. So I quickly realized that, that guaranteed 9 to 5 every 2 week check is not guaranteed, right? And so you have to I was like determined at that point. That's when I really got serious about business. I was determined to never have all of my eggs in one basket. Now, thankfully, at that point we had paid off debt, we had saved. So it wasn't a huge, it wasn't a financial burden for us. And I got a new job quickly, but the point was, it was kind of eye-opening, like, don't rely on, this job to, provide your income. Have multiple streams of income. And it's so important that people understand that when it comes to building wealth, because again, your 9 to 5 is going to help you build wealth, but it is not going to be your ticket to wealth unless you are somebody's CEO or something.
Yeah. And that just takes long. It takes a long time. Like you have to make a lot of good relationships, make a lot of people feel good about you. By the time you get it, you 55, 60, you're making multiple.
And your life is taken over by the job.
You know what I mean? You gave your life to the people. So that's so good. And you're right. I think COVID was a hard lesson that that's life. And no one was exempt from how COVID hit. The only people who, like, I wasn't exempt. I was out of work just like everybody else. I was out of work before then. But the COVID thing, I was not concerned because I had the cash on hand. It was I wasn't concerned about even looking for another job because that happened. But it's the fact that when you see people kind of, hey, this caught you off guard. Like people standing in lines trying to get food, and lines wrapped around the block, just to try to put food on their table. Really dependent on the unemployment. That even though financially they kind of made it easy for you to kind of make it through COVID, but it's still the point of you're dependent on the job when anything that goes on in the market can shift and make your job not essential, thus making you not essential for that business. So the best thing you could do is secure yourself financially. And then if somebody's job don't work out, you might love the job, but they just don't catch you off guard. And that's, I think, the first piece. And then after that, you start to build the risk. So I definitely don't want to take too much of your time. What would you encourage people, especially during this time of COVID? Well, first, before I go through that, how can people really connect with you? I know you had a podcast. I know You have a YouTube channel. You have a Facebook page. I think I saw, and an Instagram. I think I hit all of them. I just can't.
I'm everywhere. Liz, I say this on my podcast all the time. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. I'm never on Twitter, but if you really want to connect, with me, follow me on Instagram. That's the one that I'm really on. So yeah, if you want to connect there, it's Girl Talk with Fo there. And then once you get on one page, you'll find all the other pages that I have, all the other kind of ventures that I'm a part of.
Yeah, and I'll definitely share that information with you guys in the Money Talk group tomorrow. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description down below. So as we get to wrap up, because I would definitely want to be respectful of your time, what would you encourage people to really do during this time, and even with their money and with their business, to kind of go to that next level? We're in the fourth quarter. This is game time. The NBA Finals is going. It's time for people that had their finals in 2020. It didn't start off like they wanted, but how would you encourage them to really go, and things to do to finish strong?
So I would definitely say go in. I mean, we just started the fourth quarter, but if you don't have a strategy, get a strategy. When it comes to business, obviously this is one of the best times of the year for most business. It just depends on what your niche is, but take advantage of the time right now. And also, as a business owner, don't believe the hype that people aren't spending money. Some people aren't, but that's not everybody. I can attest to that. So don't let that discourage you continuing your business. Now, when it comes to your personal finances, do what you can. Like, I know a lot of people had a lot of hardships this year, but do what you can to get back on track, as far as saving, making sure you get on a budget to maintain, be able to maintain your expenses, and just go in with a strategy for next year with the expectation that things will turn around. Like, we aren't going to stay in this slump forever. Right. And so just have a strategy. And I think that's the important part, so that when things do begin to turn around, you have a plan of action that you can automatically go ahead and implement. But from a business perspective, take advantage of the fourth quarter. It's, it's time. People are spending money. Don't be fooled. People are spending money. Take advantage of it. Be smart. Have a strategy. And then from a personal finance perspective, have a strategy for your money. Budget. Make sure you're doing the tactical and practical things that you need to do to handle your money right now. And then just go on a strategy for 2021, knowing that things will turn around.
Yeah, guys, she's so awesome. I'm glad she was able to kind of carve out some time and drop some gems to encourage you along your journey. Again, I'll drop her information in the description below. If you're in the Money Talks group, I'll definitely have that in tomorrow's information coming out to you. Go support her, listen to the podcast. I encourage you guys constantly listen to these things, listen to other perspectives. Sometimes you'll connect, but sometimes somebody may share something with you that you just didn't never see from that perspective. And that may open up the opportunity for you to have an idea. And that idea might help you grow into a different area of your life. So until next time, you guys, definitely next week, have a debt-free story for you. Lots of things happen in October. And, oh, by the way, I got a savings challenge. I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow about that. If you haven't already, again, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video. And if you haven't already, join us here on Money Talks on Facebook if you're on YouTube. See you later, guys.